Welcome to Perspectives in Adventist Education. I'm your host, Stephen Brawley, Director of Secondary Education and Accreditation at the North American Division. Adventist education started in the late 1800s and has grown to operate programs from early childhood, elementary, secondary, and university levels, becoming the largest Protestant private school system in the world. Our graduates have become prominent thought leaders in all fields. Yet, few outside of the system know who we are and what we do. This series will seek out current voices to share how we are facing educational questions with an Adventist perspective. Let's join Charles Tapp, President of the Potomac Conference, as he talks with Carlos Valencia about the role of standardized testing in Adventist education.
Hi, I'm Charles Tapp, President of the Potomac Conference of Seventh-day Adventist, and I'm here at the Educators Conference for the North American Division in hot, trust me, it's hot, Phoenix, Arizona. But we've been trying to keep cool as best we can. Today I have a very special guest with us who's going to talk about something very important to us as educators. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and just share with us briefly what you want to talk about today.
Well, thank you for the invitation to interview. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. My name is Carlos Valencia, and I'm the Vice Principal of Ozark Adventist Academy in Gentry, Arkansas.
Okay.
And I'm here to talk about standardized testing, and more specifically about MAP testing.
What is standardized testing?
Standardized comes from standard. And I know some people have pushed back against standards, but we should understand standards as the goal or the expectation that we are trying to meet.
Okay.
The standards give us the roadmap and the target for what we want the kids to know and be able to do as a result of targeted intentional teaching. And then as a result of teaching the standard, the expectation, and then having intentional high-quality teaching, we are going to have an assessment. That assessment should be directly linked to the standard that we are teaching. So it's called standardized testing because it's given to many people following a set group of standards that were previously taught, and that the kids should do their best to perform on them. One thing that I want to mention about standards and assessment is that assessment and standardized testing is used to measure what we are doing at the schools.
Okay.
So the test is not especially for the kid and to point out deficiencies, but the test is used to measure what we're doing and to see where our gaps are. So parents can look at the MAP testing as a tool to make us accountable.
I see.
So are our schools doing what they are expected to do in addition to giving a spiritual education, also providing a high-quality education? If the answer that they get from the school is yes, so they can ask, so how do you know? What is the proof? And standardized testing is the answer for that.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, standardized testing doesn't begin with the actual testing, but it begins with the teaching, and you create the testing for that, and then you have the assessments to check to see whether you're on point or not.
You are correct.
Good.
So if I'm doing standardized testing, it's because I'm doing intentional teaching before that. So there is nowadays there is a big movement for standards-based teaching and also for standards-based grading.
Right.
Standards-based grading cannot exist without standards-based teaching.
Okay.
So we begin with the standards. We decide what is the set of standards that we are using. Then from among that set of standards, we choose the priority ones. So which out of that many standards are the ones that we want to teach because they are the focus, the big ideas. Once we decide that at the school level and with the teacher, then they create their assessments based on those standards.
Okay.
And that's when they give grades and feedback based on those standards that they taught intentionally. Once they get the results, they look at their data and they decide what are the next moves. Am I going to continue teaching without doing something for the kids that perform higher? Or am I going to continue teaching and leave behind the kids that performed lower in the assessment? Or am I going to do something to remediate and enrich those kids, both those in the high spectrum of achievement and those in the lower spectrum of achievement?
So standardized testing is a tool, what I'm hearing you say, for the educator as well as for the student.
It's a tool for everyone.
And the parents.
It's for the teachers to inform their instruction.
Okay.
It's for the kids to know where they are and how much they grew from one assessment to the next. It's for the parents to see where their specific kid is at, how much they are growing, and to make the school accountable for high-quality education. And it's also for the school leaders and the conference leaders and the union and everyone to measure how the schools are performing and see where the gaps are and try to find measures and plans to address those gaps and help those schools continue growing.
So are you saying then that standardized testing is a holistic approach to education?
Yes, sir. It is a holistic approach because it's a tool. Let me tell you this about the test that we use at the Seventh-day Adventist Church is the MAP test.
Right.
MAP comes from the Northwest Evaluation Agency, I think that's called. And MAP stands for Measures of Academic Progress. Those measures come from the standards.
Right.
So when the MAP test is given, they are measuring the standards that the teachers should have taught during the year.
Right.
If, as a teacher, I didn't intentionally teach the standards, and the assessment is assessing the kid on those standards, maybe the teacher hit the target. But if they didn't do it intentionally, they might have missed it. So the kid might be being assessed on a standard that the teacher might have taught or might have not taught. And that's when we decide intentionally what are those standards that we're teaching.
That's good because that means you should be able to replicate the end result if you have the standards already in place, right?
Yes, that's correct. And let me tell you this about MAP. The MAP test is used not only by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but it's used by many hundreds of institutions across the United States, public and private. Many public schools and districts use the MAP test, and many private schools too. Now, the good thing about the MAP test is that it's dynamic. It is an adaptive test.
Okay.
What I mean by that is, in the past, when standardized testing just came up, they gave the same test to all the kids on paper and pencil. And then they became fancier, and they gave it on the computer. However, the test was static. It didn't adapt to the kid.
Right.
The kid had to adapt to the test. Now, with the new technologies, the testing that is doing today, especially the MAP testing, the test adapts to the student. So let me explain that. When, as a student, I take a test and I answer a question, the system knows if that question was easy, and then if it was correct, it's going to move the kid to a little bit more complicated or harder question, or with a deeper level of knowledge.
Okay.
If the kid missed that question, the system might try a different, the same level question on the next one, or might try to lower the depth of the question. So in that way, the test adapts to the kid. At the end, after the kid has responded the about 50, 52-ish questions that they have on the test, you can be confident that you are getting an accurate and valid result.
Okay.
That is when the kid is doing their best. Now, somebody might say, but some people are not good test takers.
Right.
And that's correct. But look, when you receive the data from the testing, they are measuring the students' performance compared to thousands of kids nationwide who took the same test, same grade level, same age. And they measure your student compared to those kids. And that's when the percentile ranks come to place.
Right.
So you look at the measure of your kid compared to thousands of kids, the same grade level and same age. And also you look at the kid individually.
Do you have any stories where standard-based testing has positively impacted students?
Let me tell you, standard-based assessment has no meaning and no use if the data that we get from them is not used to inform our practices.
Okay.
So the test by itself
Okay.
has no meaning unless we, as educators, use that testing to give us information that inform best practices in my classroom. So if you ask me if the data that I got from the test in the past gave me good results, I would say yes,
Okay.
many times. I used to be an elementary school teacher in North Carolina years ago. And I used data intentionally to inform my instruction. In one of my years, they gave me all Hispanic class. My class had many newcomers. That means kids with English proficiency.
Right.
Deficits in English proficiency, right? They were limited English proficient. That's what I mean. So when I started using my data from the tests that we gave throughout the year to inform my instruction, I knew exactly what standards I taught, how proficient the kid was on that standard that I taught, because I was assessing periodically. And then at the end of the year, I could say which kids would be proficient on what standards and which kids would have some deficits, because it was intentional. At the end of that year, public school teachers, usually in some states, get some bonuses based on the performance of the students. And I was blessed enough to be the recipient of bonuses because my kids, even those low-performing kids coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds, they did very good at the state level, to the point that they were at the top 25% of the state.
Amen.
So that was a blessing, but that was intentional work.
So
I'm not saying I'm a great teacher.
Right.
I'm just saying I use my tools. They gave me the tools. I used them.
So standard-based testing then is a means to an end, is what
Yes,
I'm hearing
sir.
you saying.
Yes, sir. It all depends on how we use it. The standards by themselves mean nothing. If the teacher does not unpack those standards and teach them with intention, using research-based teaching strategies in the classroom. Now, if the assessment is linked to those standards, then the teacher is going to have a good idea of which kids are growing, which kids are not, and what interventions I'm putting in place to support those kids.
Okay.
And then if I continue doing that work throughout the year, at the end of the year, I know how much my kids grew and how much they didn't grow. And I might know also why they didn't. Now, some kids don't perform on the test very good, even though they know. And that's when the teacher's knowledge of the student comes to place.
Right.
So if my kid, who I expected to perform high on a test, did poorly, I could be able to explain why they didn't. Some kids are not good test takers.
Right.
They have testing anxiety. They had a bad night.
Right.
There's many variables that affect that. So I should be able to explain to a parent that your kid knows this. And I know that your kid knows this because I have been teaching the kid and intentionally assessing the kid all year long. However, didn't perform on the test because, and we should be able to explain, there's anxiety. There's many reasons why kids could underperform.
So what I hear you saying then, even though this is standard-based testing, there has to be an element of grace involved in all of this.
Yes, sir, because we are humans.
Yeah.
Because we are humans and we are not numbers. So that's one thing that some people may attack. And they say, yeah, but you're trying to put my kid into a number. No, we're trying to use that data to inform our instruction and to see how much our school is growing. Your kid is not a number. Right. Behind every number, there is an explanation. And as a teacher that I have been spending a whole year with your student, with your kid, I am able to say that there are too many factors at play when a kid tests or takes an assessment.
Gotcha. So how does standard-based teaching support the mission of the church? Or does it?
It does. Let me tell you why. When we are trying to, when Ellen G. White and the first, the founders of the Adventist education movement came with the idea, they didn't want only to provide Christian spiritual education.
Right.
They also wanted to have the kids come out with some skills that could make them productive citizens. As the years have evolved, the school system has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And when the times change, we should change with the times also.
Right.
So when educating a kid, we have to look at the kid as in a holistic manner.
Mm-hmm.
In that way, I'm looking at the spiritual side of the kid. I'm looking at the academic, intellectual. I'm looking at the social, emotional. And I'm also looking at the physical.
Right.
I cannot neglect one on the name of the other.
Gotcha.
We, as Adventists, we can educate our kids in the spiritual side more than any public school can.
Right.
And that is to our advantage. And we have been doing that with high quality in the past. However, parents also want to have the kids not only at a school that is spiritual, but it's also a school that can provide them a value for the investment that they put in their school, in the education of the child. So if they are bringing their children to our schools, they could bring them to a public school too, and maybe get more choices there. However, when we give high quality education to the kid, and in addition to that, spiritual, strong formation to the kid, we are giving them things that the public school system cannot give.
Right. That's great. Now, I'm sure we have a lot of parents who are listening to this podcast. Where can they go for more information about standards-based teaching?
It's easy. Just go to. If you want to just get the standards-based information, go to Google, type standards-based assessments, or type standards-based teaching, and you will get thousands of results that explain that.
Okay.
If you want to have specific information about MAP testing, you go to Google and you find the NWEA MAP growth testing, and it will provide them with a wealth of information about that. They can also go to the NAD website, and they have resources explaining MAP testing and how the NAD is using those results to improve our schools.
Okay. That's great. Now, you've said a lot today about standard-based teaching. So give me one thing that you want our parents to take away from all that you've shared today. What's your one takeaway for them?
Take away that standards-based assessment and teaching is the intentional approach to educate your kid having specific targets. You should be able to know what your kid is expected to do and know at the end of the school year.
Right.
And that's what the standards do.
And
they give you that information. They give you that expectation.
And they shouldn't be afraid of it.
No. Let me tell you this, and please, parents, don't tell this to anyone because I will get in trouble, but please make your schools accountable. Tell your principals, tell your teachers, how are we working to improve our schools? What are we doing to bring higher academic achievement in our students, along with the spiritual formation that we are giving? And if the teachers tell you that we are improving, you should be able to ask, how do you know? Do you have any data that backs up your claims?
Right.
And that's when standards-based education and standards-based assessment comes to place.
Amen. That's great. Carlos, this has been an intriguing conversation today. I thank you so much for being here with us.
It's been scary, too.
No, you did extremely well, well.
Thank you so much.
I just want to end the podcast with this one quote from the book Education by Ellen White. It's my favorite. She says, "Higher than the highest human thought can reach is God's ideal for his children." God bless you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
This is Stephen Brawley, your host. Thanks for listening. Join us again next time as we explore more perspectives in Adventist education.
An Adventist Learning Community Podcast.